call her mama stop. She call me icy hot.
He give me stove top. He go hit chipa. He give me boba cow. Do my Hitachi ah. He lay my nanny ah. He call it chubby pie. He said my type of bomb. Gave him that icy pie. One shit I'm lieutenant. I fly you to LA. My jet look like the Jetsons. It's 2028. I feel like Abu Dhabi. I said let's summer day. He said I'm wifey type. He threw dick like bouquet. He call me Doja Rat. I chew through all his chase. It's just a 50 cab. It's just 100 J's. Freezer and brand new tap. No plumber for the leg. I wouldn't waste this heat on the Miami.
She say I'm high as fuck. I said I'm icy hot. They show the 504. I wore a bunch of rocks. I got her tummy tuck before she let me fuck. I keep her in the rock. She wanna spend my bucks. She said I'm fine as fuck. I said I'm icy hot. I said I'm icy hot. I said I'm icy hot. She wanna land a punch. My pockets on croissants. I call her mama stop. She call me icy hot.
Manic Music Media Mondays. It's that time of the month again. Manic Music Media Mondays. I'm very excited. I hope you're good. That was Icy Hot by Young Thug and Doja Cat. Ooh, I have some thoughts on punk. But that's for later. We're gonna get to that down the line. I want to start off today by talking about one of my favorite genres and maybe a realization I had about it. Today, let's start off by talking about Cyberpunk. Nostalgia, where once you kind of build a world, a feeling that one is feeling obsessed with, feeling strongly about, you have to keep filling that void, keep getting a hit, keep getting a dose, a booster shot, one would say. And that's where I'm at with Cyberpunk right now. I can't even really think of the names of, I don't think I would be able to successfully name all of the just in recent history, Cyberpunk films, pieces of media, of content, of genre that have meant so strongly to me, right? You got Ex Machina, you got Chappie, you got Love, Death, and Robots, you got Altered Carbon, you got Mr. Robot, you got Elysium. Just going off of that, you got District 9, which I mentioned and I just watched. Just going off of that, it's probably more than, at this time period, because there's more content than ever, there's more of Cyberpunk that I've gotten to experience. I didn't even get to talk about, or not even mentioning animations, cartoons, and things of that nature. And of course you can imagine that's perfect for a guy like me, right? A digital punk with Digimon tattoos who refuses to cut his hair or conform to the standards of what one should have in relationships and career wise, right? Like that Cyberpunk is kind of the perfect genre, perfectly adds up everything that I'm into all in one. Technology, future, all of these things. And then not even just diving into the things that are so obviously cyberpunk, but you also have so many things that are close to cyberpunk. Things that have that dystopian, run-down cities, countries, nations, where the future is dependent on the past, where technology is so important. And there's also so much space age stuff that's going on to the Wolves, which was another one of my favorites, probably of the last year. That was this year, right? So much goes on, and it's hard to remember. What else we got? His Dark Materials, The Nevers, Mandalorian, like even Star Wars dabbles into that Star Wars visions. So clearly, Cyberpunk is not just a genre for fanboys who are imagining what's it going to be like to have sex with an android, or to sleep with an android, or to have an android in your bed, which technically you can now do. I have an Apple in my bed, but you can do that now. But obviously that's not what the genre is based on. The genre is not just for people who are so obsessed with technology, because we're all obsessed with technology, right? The mass population of the world, at least, to say the least, this nation was stuck inside of their homes for 18 months, or close to 18 months, because there was a dangerous virus, invisible threat floating outside. And we stayed inside, surrounded by all of our devices, which are connecting to Wi-Fi, which all connect to each other, which all speak to each other. And we are feeling like, as a society, for the most part, the majority of us, that our input isn't matching our ROI. And why would we? When overconsumption is just a habit these days. It is a natural reflex. It is a pattern that we have fallen into and considered it normality. And I'm here at this moment sharing with you one of my overconsumptions, media and content. So when we think of this fantastical, extremely cool, but also depressing genre that I love so much, is it not just my reality already? And if so, is this like a dream come true? Is what I've been imagining, or the world I've been hoping for, is the world that I live in as an adult? Or is it just a sad realization that my actual state of being has been this all along? And as I watch Blade Runner and all of these fantastical worlds, which are obviously are metaphors for the world that we live in, does that mean I'm not just seeing the cyberpunk beauty in everyday reality, but am I also not acknowledging true desperate of the world that we're already in? Something to think about. So you're starting to get the deal, right? We kind of figuring this out, and this is Manic Music Media Monday number 4. And part of the reason why I wanted to do it like this, or roll out with it, not knowing exactly where or how certain things would go, is because the really exciting part was going to watch the evolution of it, to watch it start here and end there. So I think last Manic Music Media number 3, the nostalgia episode, was really where we started figuring out how this plays. So we got the intro, which we just had. Then we're going to get into a memorial section where we get to say goodbye to all of the wonderful pieces of content, media, television, film, digital entertainment that I was able to enjoy over the last month since the last episode. We're going to talk a little bit about the newcomers. We're just going to acknowledge some of the current shows that are just constantly running through all of that. Then we're going to get into films. We're going to talk about just a handful of films that I got to see. We're going to get to talk about one that I was really excited for and didn't get to see. Some specials. And then we're going to end it off talking about some music, some albums. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to talk about Young Thug's Punk just a little bit. We're going to just a little bit talk about Don Toliver's album. And then maybe a lot more. We're going to talk about my last live concert experience. So why don't we do it? Why don't we dive into that? Let's get into this month's memorial section, all of the amazing shows that we're going to say goodbye to. So let's start off by talking about Squid Game. Now, I remember the first time I saw the trailer for Squid Game, I remember going, what the hell is this show about? It was not too long after watching Alice in Borderland, so I was intrigued just based off of the feeling of Cyberpunk, and just wanting to re-enter that world. What I did not know, which was the same week that we filmed the last episode, was that I was going to madly fall in love with Squid Game, and then 4 days later, the whole entire world was going to be talking about it. The whole entire world was going to be living in it. Everybody was going to be doing challenges about it. And for one, I just have to say, that is the genius of the marketing of this show. I don't know if it was Netflix. I don't know if it was the South Korean companies that put this all out. But yesterday with my niece, she was playing a Roblox Squid Game, which had all of the games in it. Also, all of my little sisters have watched it. And I thought this was going to be like a niche, mature, nuanced show that I was going to be able to talk to just my friends who really are into good content, you people, about. And it ended up becoming the challenge. And it deserves it. Because, just that from a filmmaker, from a creative perspective, I read that it took him 10 years to actually get it approved and made. But to just flip childhood games and put them into the worst possible area you could put them in, it just makes sense. Then on top of that, you make it a game inside of the actual show I'm talking about. You put money inside of it. Everything about it is a perfect idea. And the reason why it touched so many people is not only because the actors were incredible, but because the story was something that could relate to literally every single person on this planet. Whether you're a child experiencing it as just a game, or you're an adult and you understand the highs and lows of life and the desperation that one sometimes goes through. Now, moving on to something a little bit lighter, Star Wars Visions. If you don't know what that is, on Disney Plus, Disney, Star Wars, they teamed up with, I want to say 9 or 10 different Japanese animation companies to create 10 different stories that are not related to, or not canonical to the Star Wars world, but are just cool stories. And you got to see a whole wide variety. There was a rock episode that kind of felt like Interstellar 5555, the Daft Punk film. There were like a lot of anime pieces that connected the true Western feel of the original Star Wars with this space world. All different types of people doing lightsabers. It was just like you gave Star Wars fans not from the Western culture a chance to do all of their fan fiction, and it was great. It was I didn't consume it all in once. I took maybe a week or two, watch 3 or 4 episodes here, 3 episodes here, because I didn't want to. I wanted to be able to appreciate them as individuals. If you're not a big Star Wars fan, I don't think it's for you. I think it works best when you appreciate the Star Wars lore and you want to see more of it. You want to experience more of it, and you also want to experience it outside of the world. Like, sometimes you just want standalone Star Wars stories, and that's what all of the Star Wars novels that people were obsessed with for all of the years until Disney bought the company and said, hey, all of that stuff you love, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter anymore. We're not going to pay any attention to it until we feel like we're going to do it and bring it back into a movie. Moving on to the next show, What If? And I don't think What If came so quickly, came and gone. I don't even think we really got to talk about it last time. Maybe we did. And maybe my memory is just shit. But What If was fun all the way through. Oh, we did talk about it, because what I mentioned on the last episode was that I didn't know if it really needed to connect. If they were building it all up, following the same trajectory as the Avengers film, and it didn't really seem necessary. But as we got to the last two episodes, the way that it played out was incredible, 10 times than what I even imagined. Even from watching the trailers and kind of having an idea of watcher into the show was in a way that I never thought I was going to see in my lifetime. And that's the cool thing about Disney Plus. That's the cool thing about being able to have these Marvel series, is that they're genuinely bringing us deep, hardcore, die-hard fans things that we never imagined in our whole entire existence. And partly that's because the people who are making it want to see these things in their lifetime. So from fans to fans, we're creating it. That's the best thing about having fans, hiring fans to work on the product, right? Same thing with the Star Wars visions. People who have their own vision of what this should be because they're passionate about it and they feel so strongly about it, giving you some of that. The next show that we're going to talk about, I think, also builds upon that, because it is very much based on an industry, a world that people love, that I happen to love and happen to be obsessed with, and that is the wrestling industry. Heels. When I started watching the first episode of Heels, I thought it sucked. I thought the dialogue was cheesy, was corny. I hated the theme song. I was just like, what the hell is this? I understood that it was a southern wrestling scene. And I think I can admit that I've experienced enough southern wrestling, at least on the mainstream to right underneath the mainstream, that minor league level, that it's not exactly my cup of tea. So I thought that that's just what the show was going to be. But I was also a little bit embarrassed by it. Why would they have this dialogue in it? But in the wrestling world, we have something that we call a work, right? That's what wrestling is. When people call it, it's fake. It's not a fake. It's that you're getting worked, right? We're telling you a storyline, and wrestling works perfectly when the work works, and you don't know where the fiction and the non-fiction ends and starts. And I don't know exactly if this was on purpose or not, but Heels worked me for that whole first episode. Had me thinking it was going to be this cheesy, not nuanced, not in tune kind of show. And the first episode, like, the plot point of it was kind of saying, oh yeah, everything you thought was going to happen, that's not what this is. What up? Oh, that's the type of show you thought it was? Bitch, you just got worked. You just got worked. Because it took me by a thrill. And from there, I was obsessed. I couldn't wait to watch it all the time. There was moments where Ric Flair was getting canceled, and there was a character on the show who was clearly based off of a Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan type of relationship with the entertainment industry and with the wrestling world, and it was all happening at the same time as the show was showing it. And it also did something interesting where I don't know how much fans will pick up on this. I don't know how deliberate it was. When I think about who the heels on the show, the bad guys, the villains, it was the men all of the men and the family, all of the men involved, and the women were not getting a chance to shine. Actually, it had to be done on purpose, because when you think about how the first season ends, it leads exactly to this. This is the point that it seems to be making. In this industry, women have not been treated well. Women have not been treated right. And these women have to go through in this industry. By the last episode, that theme song that I hated so terribly ended up becoming cute to me. It worked so well. Moving on, let's talk about Titans, the DC show on HBO Max. Alright, so Titans season finale was the other day, just a couple of days ago, and I'm invested into Titans. I've watched 3 episodes in basically the past 3 seasons, so over 30 episodes in the past just 2 months, I want to say, because in our September episode, I hadn't watched any of it yet. And there are some episodes that are absolutely fucking horrible. They are fucking terrible. You know what I mean? Like, bad. They are so CW, and so much stupid shit happens in them that I'm going, what the fuck? Why are you saying this way? Like, it's almost upsetting. That put aside, I really like a lot of these characters. I really just like being in Gotham. Even the characters I don't really like, I'm invested in. So it's working. I almost begrudgingly am excited for the next season. But, I mean, I don't blame them, because that is what I expect from them. A CW type of show. And I really think that the incredible thing is that majority of the time, it is not a CW type of show. But when it is, it does not do it for me. Moving on to C. Oh my god. C is so cool. Jason Momoa is so cool. We're going to talk about Dune later. But it really feels like this show is just made to make Jason Momoa look cool as hell. Do creators, do directors, do producers, do writers just want to... Is Jason Momoa just a fantasy from their dreams where they can write these incredible characters for him? Or is Jason Momoa got the best backing and the best agency behind him that are like, oh no, if you're gonna do a movie, we're gonna make sure you look cool as fuck in it? Because that's what C is. The story has gone exponentially into different places than where it first started. But if you really think about it, it couldn't stay where it started. Even the trajectory of where the first season seemed like where it was going is not where it ended up. But clearly Apple TV is invested in this show. Clearly Apple TV is spending money on this show, and it shows. It is Apple TV's version of trying to get to a Game of Thrones. I was actually surprised by seeing that the reviews for it weren't so great, because I'm so late on it. This, like Titans, was a show I just caught up with so quickly. But I don't fucking care. I like it. It's one of those shows I just like. I'm excited about, and I'm so excited for the next season. I don't know where the hell it's gonna go, but it's also, even though I'm really invested into it, it's also not as heartbreaking. It's a little scandalous, and scandalous is different than gut-wrenching. And I enjoy that about it. It's the perfect show to wake up on a Friday morning and go, hey, we gotta watch C. Or stay up late on a Thursday night and go, hey, what's gonna go on? I'll see. So I'm very excited for the next season. And the final show we're gonna talk about in the memorial section is Rhodes to the Top, which is a reality television show starring Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes, who are both former WWE wrestlers. Also, two of Obsession at the moment, and the newest, hottest growing wrestling company in the world. And I'm not into reality TV shows. So many things they did right. It's only 6 episodes. They put it on exactly after AEW plays on TNT. They put majority of the episodes two back to back, so that it was only, even though it was maybe 6 episodes, it was only 3 or 4 weeks of actual watching it on television. And I never watched WWE Divas or I don't even know what that show is called. Divas, right? Divas, WWE. I'm not gonna look it up, but it's gonna bother me. I never watched that, but once I really got back into wrestling, I did imagine that it's gotta be really cool to see all of the ins and outs and the behind the scenes of wrestling. And AEW was extremely intelligent by giving us that ins and outs. Yeah, Cody Rhodes is great. We're booing him at the moment, which we're not supposed to be doing. But it was very cool that they showed us his perspective and showed him the opposite side of it, and showed an insight into some of the wrestling stories that we're not even, like, you know, as huge wrestling fans, we're all up in the dirt sheets. We're watching all of the news reviews, and we feel like we know all of the details behind the scenes, but it's really cool to find out that we don't know shit, and that so much more is going on. Alright. Good job, Cody Rhodes. I'm proud of you. You got me watching reality TV again. Who the hell knew? No, actually, you got me watching Rhodes to the Top. I'm not going to watch no other reality TV after this. It's not happening. So next up, we get to talk about the newcomers. Some of them are very brand new newcomers. Some of them are only coming back around because it's that time of the year again. So, since we're talking about that time of the year again, it is October. We are in that middle year, so there aren't any elections coming around. But we are in political season, right? October, September, November. It's all the people want to talk about is politics. And it's almost, I guess, one of the joys and the beauties of summer. So you aren't thinking about it as much, right? Like, everybody's on vacation. It's also one of the problems with this country, with this nation, is that we only see it as a sometimes thing, when politics is life and it's an everyday thing. But what that means is that this season means that all of my political shows have come back. So The Circus, which is a show I enjoy way too much, right? It comes on Showtime. It's just 4 different political commentators who kind of attack one theme every episode and look at it from 4 different perspectives. But they eat good food, they drink good, and they have good conversation. And I like it so much. Almost like how wrestling gives me like, oh, this is a very cool way to live in the entertainment industry. The Circus does that for politics, for political people. Axios, which is another show I watch on HBO Max, which just came back, does the same exact thing, right? good interviews, people traveling the world, talking to cool people about the stuff that they enjoy. Jon Stewart is back on Apple TV, and he's doing the same thing. What I really like about Jon Stewart's new show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, is that it's bi-weekly. So you know that they're working on it as we're waiting on the next one. And it is pretty much The Daily Show, if evolved, but what Jon Stewart wanted The Daily Show to be. Because what The Daily Show became with Trevor Noah, I'm not going to complain about it. I like it. But it is something that's very different than what The Daily Show used to be. And I don't know if you could have had The Daily Show for what it used to be the whole time. I don't know if you could have hired somebody else that would have been able to bring that same Jon Stewart feel to it, right? Samantha Bee has Full Frontal on TBS, and she created her show with her own different vibe. Who knows? Vice News Tonight, which has never actually stopped. Vice News Tonight, at one point it was on Vice, at one point it was on HBO, or it was on HBO, then it was on whatever. It jumped around a bunch of different channels. It's been on Vice TV for a while, but who watches Vice TV anymore? So I also brought Vice News Tonight back. Show that I'm really excited to talk about. And we're probably going a little bit long, so maybe I should cut it down. But it's Foundation. Foundation. It's not Cyberpunk. It's space age. I mean, Foundation as a sci-fi story. Most of the sci-fi stories that we see that we've encountered in our lifetime has been inspired by Foundation, and it's such a grand story with so many layers to it, with like almost pretty much two completely separate main cast. And knowing what I know about Isaac Asimov, who wrote Foundation, he wasn't so big on different races. But the really cool thing I like about Apple TV and about what most shows are doing right now is that so much of it is focused on black women, and I don't think that most of these characters were written as black women, but it works so well that I don't think about it until after the fact, where I go, hey, I wonder if this in the book was actually written by a black woman, or it was actually supposed to be a black woman. But it does feel regular. It feels normal. And as I'm talking about this, I'm realizing that Foundation is such a big, epic show that I don't even know how to describe it to somebody or how to explain it. Because really, if you're thinking about the story, it spans over thousands of years. So to give a quick breakdown of what we have seen on screen still only feels like a piece of it. Great work. Great work. Another show that came back into my life in the most beautiful, lovely way is Succession. I guess let's talk about these next three shows. They happened in two different weeks, but they're all HBO Max, and they all play back to back with each other. We have Succession at 9 o'clock now. Then we have Insecure at 10 o'clock, and then we have Curb Your Enthusiasm at 10:30 p.m., which are three of HBO's best shows, hands down, just going back to back to each other. HBO just loaded the gun, and it was like, oh, you think you want a Sunday night? You think you want to put something on Sunday night? Nah, I'm murder all of ya. It's done. It's done. Succession, smartest, quickest wit show probably on television. As I'm watching it, I'm laughing it, I'm jumping, I'm punching, I'm kicking. It give me that feeling. Good damn writing where it matters what people say. When I watched the second episode yesterday, I was bringing it back like a rap album where I'm like, oh wait, what you said? Oh, let me hear that bar again, and again. Oh, that was fire. That was fuego. Insecure. gives me the same guttural interaction in a whole different way. I love these characters. I love the first episode, which is one of the most incredible things that it does about the show, is that it's so self-aware that it thinks like, okay, maybe fans are looking at one character and they're only seeing them as a punchline, or they're only seeing them as an archetype in this story, and they go, all right, let's flip the archetype and let's dive into it, let's dip into it. And yesterday's episode was fun. It was about Molly, was about Issa, but what they were able to do with Kelly in one episode, with the person who kind of becoming the funny character, the town jester, was she acknowledged it, and she was like, is that what the hell y'all all think of me? Do you think of me as a town jester? And to be so self-aware and to be so referential and smart in that way. Great job. This is the final season of it, and I am so happy for Issa. Seeing her production company, Hooray, pop up at the end was a proud moment for me as just a fan. As just somebody who has been watching since the first season. I wasn't with her on her YouTube series, so Insecure was really my way of getting to meet Issa, grow with her, and be excited about her. The last show that we're going to talk about is we're going to go back to Apple TV, and it's a show called Invasion, which is about basically aliens coming to Earth. I've only watched the first 3 episodes. That's all what's been released. One, Apple TV, because I am really just diving into it, there's only a few shows that I've had watched from it, but because I love C, because I'm loving Foundation, every time they drop something new, kind of like HBO Max does, I'm going, okay, let me give it a shot. Invasion, the really cool thing about it is that it's telling the story of aliens, I believe, coming to Earth with the name like Invasion, but it's telling it really slowly, like almost in real time, where it kind of feels like you're spending an hour with each of these characters as they're going through it. So by the end of the season, we may not really know what's going on. Either that or episode 4, which they do with a lot of shows, they're just gonna jump and speed right into it. But I'm down for the ride. There's a character on it, a husband, who is a fuck nigga, man. He's the worst guy in the world. And I hope that the reason why they're writing him as such a piece of shit is because he's gonna die. And it's gonna be glorious. And what a sick sentence for a human being to say. Even though I'm talking about a fictional character. What a sick sentence. And then rounding up all of the shows to talk about, Last Week Tonight is back with John Oliver. Jesus and Meryl are back. You know, those are just shows that, well, actually, let me not say those are just shows. Last Week Tonight is a show where I get good comedy, but also good informative information. Sometimes about things I already know about and getting a deeper dive. Sometimes about things I don't know anything about. And Jesus and Meryl just feels like I'm hanging with my niggas. And I'm happy for them. I'm proud of them. So let's talk about some films. I watched District 9 the other day. As I mentioned earlier, I was really in that feeling cyberpunk mood where I was like, alright, I'm tired. I'm about to go to sleep soon. But I need to go back to thinking about the initial thought. I need to leave dystopian world that I'm already in to go enter another dystopian world. I don't know if that's sad or inspiring or enlightening. We're not going to dive into it right now. We're not going to think about it too much right now. But like I said, I put on District 9, and watching District 9 probably for the first time in maybe 4 or 5 years, I realized that I completely forgot what the film was even about. As I'm watching it, I'm going, what? Where does this go? I had one visual of one of the very last scenes, and I'm like, could not put together the pieces of how we got from one side to the next side. And rewatching it was almost like watching it for the first time, where I was in awe of it again. And seeing so much of what that director can do from there. But it brought me back to the first moment, which I believe I was in high school. And it brought me to the first time watching that movie and why I fell in love with it. And what aesthetically, story-wise, also the DIY resourcefulness of it, where not clearly because it doesn't look it or doesn't feel it, but clearly it's not a high budget film, or most of the budget is spent on trying to design these aliens, and they are able to cover that up with such unique and innovative storytelling. Another movie I saw was Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds, which was so damn funny. Ryan Reynolds has this amazing habit, niche of picking hilarious movies with heart that connect to so many people. Ryan Reynolds and Little Rel were a great team together. They were hilarious. I didn't realize that it was going to go down like the artificial AI route, which brought a whole nother psychological, emotional concept and texture to the film that I didn't expect. Another movie I watched was Netflix The Guilty, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know why that almost left me from around. So as I'm watching the film, I thought it was about just like The Guilty was going to be about a 911 operator who is helping trying to investigate a child. You find out very quickly, and you might have even seen this in the trailer, maybe I just didn't pay enough attention to it, that the 911 operator is a cop. And that took the movie in a whole nother angle than what I expected it to go in. It talked about, it successfully captured how hardworking a cop can be, while also at the same time shining a light on how much more focus we need to put on mental health services, on our mental health situations, and how one cop's anger, how one cop's bias can affect an investigation and can affect all of the people who are surrounded. And on top of all of that, the movie felt like a movie that was clearly made during the quarantine. A lot of Jake Gyllenhaal in a room by himself. A lot of just voice actors on the phone playing their part. And for a movie like a quarantine movie, I would also say it's very impressive. It did a good job at that, which brought me back to thinking about Ryan Reynolds. His film that he had called Buried, which I believe he was like a truck driver in a Middle Eastern country, and he gets buried alive, and all he has is a cell phone to try to get someone to save him. I remember seeing that in the movies and just being so impressed with Ryan Reynolds as an actor. That's another movie that came out when I was in high school, and it was the ultimate feat for me that a person could do to do a whole movie by himself in a box. And maybe I hope to get there one day. A movie that's on the exact opposite end of that spectrum was James Bond's No Time to Die. James Bond, No Time to Die. No Time to Die, James Bond. Which So I didn't see Venom 2. Let's just get it out. Let's just say it. I'm so damn excited to see Venom 2. I want to see it in the movie theaters. I could watch it other ways, but I'm refusing to because I want to see it in the movies. But when I had the one opportunity, because I've been pretty busy these past few weeks, the one opportunity that I had, it was Venom 2 had already been out for a few weeks. It was only playing standard. I had a free movie ticket. I was like, I'm not using this movie ticket to go just see regular Venom. I'm going to go see James Bond in IMAX the way that it's supposed to be seen. Because at least I'll be able to see one of them the way that it's supposed to be seen, than not see both of them in the way that I want to see it. And James Bond No Time to Die was fabulous. It made me realize I got to go back and watch Spectre and... Damn, what's the other one? Casino Royale, I know. There's 5 of them. Oh, I'm blanking on them right now. Spectre. Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace is the second one. Alright. Night. Casino Royale. Spectre. Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace. Skyfall. Spectre. Ooh! I got it. I was about to be tight. Oh, there was something I forgot earlier that didn't come back to me, alright? It's still lost. Still lost in the No Time to Die. Great film. It's probably too late, but if you could see it in IMAX, I would say that's the way to go see it. Even after waiting a whole year for it to come out, and was my James Bond because I grew up with him, but Daniel Craig took the James Bond character and a completely new perspective, and I think gave life to James Bond being able to live for the next generation. Because it showed that if you change things up again, it can still work, and you can still create a whole new generation of fans. Speaking about a film of fans, let's talk about it. Dune. HBO Max dropped Dune. Now, I was extremely excited about Dune. This episode's about Cyberpunk. We dabbled into Cyberpunk with Dune. And I didn't know what to expect. I've read reviews about it. People said that it felt incomplete, felt short. I kind of made a point to not dive back into all of the Dunes that are already out there again, because I wanted to experience it with new eyes. Dune is not one of the sci-fi space age cyberpunk films that I've actually gone back and forth with. The only time I really saw it was as a child, and all I remember really what the blue eyes was. So I wasn't that familiar with the story. So I was excited to go in as just a fan, as just a watcher, as just a viewer, not as a person who had their own ideas of what it should feel like or what it should cover. And as somebody who was pretty open-minded about it, I liked it. I do think that it's kind of a whole movie, and then there's kind of extra stuff at the end. And I'm going, okay, the extra stuff at the end clearly shows me that you're trying to start a part 2. But without there being an actual part 2 already in the process, already being made, it almost feels like a pitch to be able to create a second one. And yes, it's necessary for you to keep the story going, but as just a whole encompassed single film, it didn't completely it told one story and started telling another story. But I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I'm actually very excited to rewatch it and watch it again, because I think it's one of those movies that you can take a bunch out of a few times. Just to touch on some specials I watched Dave Chappelle, The Closer. I don't even really got to talk about it. Controversial. Honest from his perspective. I don't want to say anything more about that. Billie Eilish has a special on Disney Plus, and I I haven't watched all of it, so I don't want to get too deep into it. It's probably maybe watched a half an hour, 40 minutes of it, and I think it's 2.5 hours long. But really respect Billie Eilish. Really respect her family more than anything, because clearly the reason why she has achieved the level of success that she has is because of the family that she keeps around her. And the family that she keeps around her. I mean, technically, yes, the family that she keeps around her. But the family that she didn't choose. But we're still able to foster this incredible, creative, and supportive, and open-minded community around her. Kudos for that. Once I saw that, and also as I'm watching No Time to Die in the theater and I'm hearing Billie Eilish do the theme song for it, it really pointed out to me that this girl could be a star. She's already a star, but can have real longevity if she chooses to go down that route. And that's the perfect segue to talking about music. That's where we're going to end this off with Manic Music Media Mondays. That's how we're always going to do it. We're always going to be as manic as we like about the shows that we're watching, about the television, about watching, about the films that we're watching. And then we're going to end it talking about some music. So let's start off talking about Don Toliver's album, because I didn't know what to think. I like Lemonade. That is like one of my favorite songs. So did that drop in 2020? If it dropped in 2020, it's one of my favorite songs of 2020. Don Toliver kills that. Every time I hear him on a feature, it is damn good. Baby Keem album, Travis Scott album. He's cool. I tried to listen to his album. It just wasn't for me. Like, the sound was cool, the vibe was cool, but I was like, this is music is like love music, R&B music, made for women, and I don't want to listen to this. Not one, I don't want to hear you singing this into my ears, but also I'm never going to be on the train and be having this feeling and having this vibe. Maybe, somebody comes over, that's what I'm going to put on in the background. But I still just wanted to shout out Don Toliver, because I like him. Even though that album may not be for me, I like him. Surprisingly, I have a very similar perspective about Punk by Young Thug. If you are unsure, I love Young Thug. I love me some Young Thug. I see them in concert plenty of times. I remember I saw him in concert in Central Park once with DJ Carnage. So think about what kind of show that is. It's like Young Thug giving you like that trap, but it's real nigga trap, and then DJ Carnage. So most of the people in the audience were just college rave kids who should have never been at that show in the first place, but didn't understand Young Thugger and didn't respect Young Thugger. And I remember, rapping the lyrics to Young Thug in the pit, and them looking back like, who the hell knows the lyrics to Young Thug? And I remember being like, why are you here? The disrespect of culture. But I love me some Young Thug. And the cool thing about Punk is that when you hear the name of Punk, you think it's going to be a hard-hitting banger of an album. And that is not at all what he did with Punk. He told you that the album was going to be punk. He marketed it as big and brash, and then it ended up being kind of like a very slow acoustic album with a lot less ad-libs, with a lot less turn-up music, and with a lot more Young Thug just telling him story. I would describe it as like Young Thug's version of a Drake album, right? Because all of the people who love Drake albums, that's what they love. They love just hearing Drake talk about what's going on in his life. It doesn't matter how relatable it is to the rest of us, they just want to know what's going on in Drake's life. And I feel like Young Thug was like, yeah, I'm going to speak to you and just tell you stuff that went on in my life. At least half the album feels like that. I started off with Icy Hot. This episode off with Icy Hot because it's a vibe. But even that song don't really do it for me. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about today on this Manic Music Media Monday is I saw Day to Remember live. Now, Day to Remember is a metalcore pop punk band that I have been in love with since I've been 14, 15 years old. Completely obsessed with. I've got their autographs. I've met them. But the reason why I say autographs is because I'm not the type of dude to get nobody's autographs. But I did it for Young Thug because I did it for A Day to Remember because I was like, this is my opportunity to just stand with these dudes for a bit that have been such a great inspiration for me, and even less of an inspiration, more of like a coping mechanism. I think one of the great reasons I love A Day to Remember is because every time they put out a new project, I start thinking to myself, I'm like, Jeremy, who is probably one of the main writer of the band and the lead singer of the band, I'm constantly thinking, did he and I have the exact same year? Because he wrote this song that perfectly heals the angst that I'm going through. And it's been a few years since I saw Day to Remember live. They didn't come to New York City for a while, and in that time period I wasn't really out here living the life that I could have traveled up to see them. So seeing them here in my city at a brand new venue, Pier 47, 70, I can't remember which pier it was. But it's in the middle of South Street Seaport, rooftop pier, outside, Empire State Building, everything around you. And the most epic mosh pit that I've been in 5 or 6 years. The thing about a New York City mosh pit, alright, so I forgot about this, but this was something I experienced re-going to a show, because I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not chilling in the mosh pit like I used to. But when you go to a New York City show, about half of the mosh pit, half of the show is New York City kids, and some of them is about this life, some of them is not about this life, but you get a mix and mix. Then you get a bunch of kids from Jersey, Long Island, transplants, and almost none of them is about this life. Maybe a few of the ones from Jersey, but almost none of them is about this life. So when you get into a mosh pit, as somebody who is a Bronx dude who, yes, I'm in a crowd of people that are pushing and kicking each other, but I don't play that shit, in a lot of ways. You're not going to be pushing me, you're not going to be kicking me, but we all going to enjoy this mosh pit together. As a dude who comes from that perspective, there's about 20% of us that is real. Which is, like I said, they're metal punk songs. So people don't even really acknowledge them. Some people are only fans of them for their soft stuff. So you get about 15% of a mosh pit at a show like that, whereas people is really, really about it. And then you get about another 85%. 10% of them you're protecting because you don't want them to get hurt because they're falling over. They're in places that they shouldn't be. And then you get the rest of the people that are just, some of them are wilding, some of them are bugging out, some of them don't know how to handle. But the experience that you get as one of that 15% real niggas is that people start fanboying over you in the pit. Because you're just there trying to have the best time of your life, right? You're losing your mind. You're singing along. I'm dancing around. I'm jumping around. But I'm also conserving my energy to the point that I don't want to be exhausted. But you get people who just want to walk up to you and give you fives and give you pounds and hey and yeah and talk to you. So as I'm in this pit for an hour and 20 minutes that I did remember plays, I got people putting their arms around me singing, and I'm going, what the fuck? This is my first experience like this since the pandemic has ended. And it was a vaccinated only show, which, what does that mean, right? You can still walk around carrying the virus. But I just have a moment where I'm like, this feels disgusting, but it also felt like the freedom of an old life that I had almost forgotten, but it started to itch that I need to to scratch on a normal basis. That's what it gave me. But A Day to Remember was incredible live. There's a reason why they've been my favorite band for as long as I can remember. Amazing mosh pits, amazing sing-alongs, amazing chants, reminders that every time I step in the mosh pit, that's my fucking mosh pit. Some people are not going to understand what that means. So they're going to be like, it's a mosh pit. But if you do understand what that means, it means so much. So thank you, A Day to Remember. Thank you for giving me the time of your life. Since I've seen them live, one of the band members had to leave the band based off of sexual assault allegations against him. Not proven, but I guess I have to mention that. I'm glad I got to see them all together before then. But also, what the fuck are you doing, bro? This was Manic Music Media Mondays. That's why it's called Manic Music Media Mondays, because dude be manic. Thank you for tuning in. If you got all the way here, you got to the very end of it. This part is probably not even going to end up in the clips, so kudos to you. Thank you. I feel like we went almost an hour today, right? So at first I was trying to make this a 15-minute thing because I wanted it to. So I think with this format, let's keep it at an hour. Let's keep it going like this. And what that will also give me the ability to is just start releasing this as a podcast. So we'll release the podcast version of that. So you look, we worked this out together. You got to see that live thought process happening right here. You didn't even have to pay extra for that. So once again, thank you for watching Manic Music Media Monday. This is Manic Music Media Monday number 4. We are doing this at an hour as we just discussed, and we got into the place where we're doing this on a monthly basis. So when should you be able to expect this again? I would say expect the last Monday of November. I believe that's the weekend right after Thanksgiving. None of that should get in the way of it. Then the last Monday of December, I believe, is the day before my birthday, if I'm doing the math. And there's a chance that I'll be in Mexico for that one. So maybe things will get even more interesting for that. Thank you for watching. My name is Tyler PSwitch Dow. That P is silent. If you're into what I'm doing, follow on Instagram. Follow on YouTube. This is on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, make sure you give us a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit us with a subscribe. Not only do I do this content, I do all types of digital content. Also host a show Saturday morning, Synopsis, for the Cool Company, and I host a wrestling show for the Cool Company called Cause the Silent P Said So. So make sure you check out the Cool Company's YouTube page as well. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a productive week. And tell me about some of the content that you're watching. And tell me what your thoughts about what my thoughts were on the content that I'm watching. Because I'm genuinely interested, right? That's why we're having this conversation. Have a good one. Keep your cool.